people can see. This is my precious little rider.
He is precious.
He is so much fun. So much fun. And even though he's only 3 months old, he's like a 6-year-old or 6-month-old size. So we definitely get a workout holding this little one.
How much does he weigh?
I don't know, 15, 17 pounds.
Oh no, he's probably 18 pounds. He's like an 18-pounder.
He's a big boy.
He's so sweet. He is just so precious. This is a little one that God has sent into my life to make me really clear that we all come in as the essence of love and light. And we lose that with all the conditioning. And the world today is just realizing we dimmed our love and light with the conditioning. And now the world is dark and dreary because it needs our light. So this little one is bringing his light, and we need to turn ours up.
So sweet.
It's hot.
All right, so I'm going to send him. Oh, you know what? Let me let him stay here because Kat is going to want to see him. And there she comes.
Hi, sweet boy.
Oh, and Jody's coming in. She will not like that. She meant. All right, Miss Jody, Miss Kat, look who's here.
Oh,
Little rider.
So sweet.
It's so much fun having this precious one. And all these years that I've known Kat, she has just been so enamored with her grandchildren. And I always hear about how amazing these grandbabies are, how amazing it is to be a grandmama.
yes.
I'm just like you now.
Oh my God. It just makes your heart, melts your heart. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna send him off. And
Wait, don't
so you're looking at
Blow
on.
kisses. Blow kisses.
he's like,
No,
oh,
don't send him off yet. I just got on. Wait. Hi, Ryder.
oh wait, Jody wants to see him. Come
Come on,
on,
I
Jody.
gotta see that beautiful face. Oh my God. Hi. I'm sorry, my video's not on. Oh my God, look at that beautiful boy.
And there's the beautiful mama.
Thank
Lauren,
you.
make an entrance.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Oh my God. Beautiful.
This
Oh
is
my
the
God.
best,
Big
the best one of
kisses.
these Wednesday gatherings, starting with Ryder.
Oh, I love you, Ryder.
Oh, geez.
Oh geez. Well, here we go.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you for making an appearance with Ryder.
Absolutely.
Is that fan okay?
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining me and having the opportunity to enjoy little Ryder there. Oh, and Lawana's coming in. She didn't get to see Ryder. Oh well. That's just how we go. She'll have to watch the video. So today is August 25th. And Grandpa, it's good to see you there. See you on screen since I don't get to see you live for a few more days. Actually a week. I'm here another week.
Wow.
And I want to thank all of you who came to our gathering last night. That was just so wonderful. And I'm so grateful that Dr. Vern made the suggestion that we do the live and the Zoom version so that people can participate. Those who we want to be live, we want to connect with other people. We want to be able to give a hug afterwards and have that physical experience. We'll go ahead and still create that. And he's going to help me so that the rest can Zoom in, because that's just so powerful to be able to have anybody who wants to participate. And of course, the live, there is a fee for the live because I've got to rent a space and all that good stuff. And so I'll make the Zoom really nominal. But today, based on last night's conversation, I woke up knowing the lesson that we have to focus on today. And the lesson is, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. And we need to really, really get clear that our work in awakening, the ascension that is taking place, is a personal ascension. This has nothing to do with anybody else. What that means is that we are elevating ourselves up in our own consciousness, moving from the egoic conditioning and rising up to reclaim our light as we were born, like little Rider. We have to rise to the place where nothing bothers us anymore because we know everything is just energy. We have to rise to the place of compassion and forgiveness because we know everybody that is hurting doesn't remember their light. They need our light as the reminder of their light. They need to see that it is possible, especially in a world that is going to, well, I'll say it, to hell in a handbasket, that old Southern term. In a world that is devolving, we need to evolve up. And I just had this conversation. I can't remember who it was that when I was coaching. Dondra, did I have that conversation with you about evolving and devolving? I think it was with you. Okay. So I want to we'll touch on that right before we go into the lesson. And this is lesson 153. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. But before we go to the lesson, let's do a little heart check. And what are you feeling today that you can attribute with gratitude to Course in Miracles? In other words, what did you feel like you were able to do today that allowed you to shift your perception? Maybe something you looked at differently today than you might have seen it yesterday or a week ago, that you know the principles of A Course in Miracles that are simply returning you to your truth. They're liberating you. They're giving you more certainty, more clarity. That's all the Course intends to do, is remind you, you are as God created you. So unmute yourself and share, please.
Hi, this is Jody. I'd like to share for a second.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing Ryder on. Oh, how precious. I would like to share. I think that last night really just simplified all. I was stuck slightly in the matrix, and I was able to pull out of the matrix and return to the truths, which allowed me to release fear. And that's pretty much as simply as I could put it.
Oh, I'm so grateful. So grateful to hear that, just we come together for a couple of hours, and in community where two or more gather, there is love, and love is what helps us rise. So I am so grateful that you allowed yourself to receive and be part of that experience. Thank you so much. So let's see, in the chat, Lisa, was last night recorded? Yes, actually I did record it. Now I wasn't going to make those public, but you know what? Yeah, I'll go ahead and send that to anybody who wants it. Let me know who would like to have a copy of last night's, and I'll just email it to you. So I'll email it to Lisa, and just let me know. Patricia, thanks for raising your hand. That makes it easy. And I've got your email, right, Patricia? If not, go ahead and type it into the chat box, please. I will have it. And Crystal wants it. Very cool. All right, I'll send it to you guys. Phyllis, would you like to get a copy of last night?
Yes, please.
All right, and I think I have your email, but you know what? Put it in the chat. That way I have them when this gets processed, and I'll have it there. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right.
I do have a question though, Laina.
Yes, Jody.
So you said about the Tuesday, obviously I would be online, but there are probably times when I come down there and work and I do it in person. So could you let us know, what the distinctions, the cost, all that, where it is and that kind of stuff?
What I was doing was $20 live. So then I'll do $10 online.
Okay.
And then it's the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month.
Okay.
So that's the way we're going to be doing it.
Perfect. Thank you.
And do you get my newsletters, Jody?
I do, but I don't read lengthy type things.
Well, the calendars will be in there.
Then I'll
keep-
check it. Thank you.
Keep up with that. All right. Anybody else want to share where you are at in your world today, the way you're looking at things, especially by allowing Course in Miracles to be present in your life? Yes, Dondra.
I had a dentist appointment this morning and yesterday, and I was telling you, everybody was so excited that they were going to be able to get their third booster. And I was kind of shocked the first time I was in there. And then today I just looked at everybody with mask on and I just felt nothing until that. I'm so relieved because I have to admit, I've been a little judgmental on people that are still wearing masks, and especially in a car by themselves. So it was just made me feel just more love, or just more acceptance to people wearing masks.
Uh-huh. Well, I love hearing that, because we have got to get clear that their mask wearing is there for a reason. It's supposed to help us become two things. Everything is always two things. One, more aware of what the ego does so that we can say no to that for ourselves. And two, more aware of what we can do with the Holy Spirit when we can rise above what the ego would do. Ego to ego, how ego to ego would judge, or ego to ego would agree. Misery loves company. So when we make the decision to shift into the Holy Spirit, we see, I just shifted myself. I gave myself a holy instant. I was in a holy relationship with my spirit inside. And that is what's so beautiful. And I celebrate about that experience for you. So thank you. That's crucial. We have to learn to accept that everybody's in their journey. And we are so thick in our sleep, so dense in our sleep, that it required a pandemic to wake us up. We needed billions of people in their ego, in their fear, in their control, in whatever they're in. We needed billions to help wake up humanity. That's how asleep humanity is. Just the simple desire for peace wasn't enough. That wasn't a big enough thing. We have been brought to terror, and it's going to get a little worse because there's still too many. As you see the mask wearers, as you see the compliant people, they need to be taken into terror to wake them up. And God wants all of us to wake up. So those who are in the controlling role are going to push those who are still asleep, really asleep, as far as they possibly can. And it's going to require massive deaths, possibly concentration-like camps, to really wake up the masses. Listen, the Nazi Germany story with 6 million who died wasn't enough to wake up humanity. We literally are going to have to move into the billions. The millions that have died through religious wars in the name of God, wars, senseless wars, just wars between countries, famine, that has not been enough. That's how thick the dream of separation is. We really think this world is real. We really think that it's okay to have hunger. Those of us who send our $30, $40 a month to feed the hungry, we use that as permission to, okay, everything's okay. I did my part. It's not enough. It's got to come to our front door. So recognize that the players that are playing the really dark roles, they're doing that because those of us who needed to wake up needed the Mack truck. The 2x4 wasn't enough. The smack in the face wasn't enough. The little stuff has not been enough. We literally needed something big. And guess what? We've got something big. And it is absolutely all part of the plan. So I am so grateful for you, Dondra. Thank you for sharing that. So who else? You're seeing some shifts.
Laina.
That's what this is all about. We've got to have these examples that help us experience it as real. Yes, thank you.
Laina, this is Kat. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Kat. Yes, ma'am.
Uh, when I went to hear Dr. Lee Merritt speak twice this past weekend, and she's the frontline doctor.
Yep.
She's so brilliant. And it was amazing. It was just a wonderful experience, and I learned a lot. And one of the things she said that caused me, like, I felt myself going into a little, I want to call it concern, but I'm sure fear. And as she said, the unvaxxed people need to stay away for 10 weeks, not 2 weeks. And I'm, oh my God. And then I talked to my grandson who's coming to town this Saturday, and he just got vaxxed like a week and a half ago. So it was like, okay, so this is a real situation. And so I'm not going to act out of fear. I'm going to go. I mean, Garland was my firstborn grandson, just like Ryder is yours. And there's such a bond you can't explain. But so I'm just choosing to be prudent and yet not live in fear around that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So today's lesson is going to be perfect. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. We have got to get really clear that, number one, and this is going to challenge you, but it's supposed to move out of your ego-induced cocoon. You've got to face some of your biggest fears. Number one, you have got to begin to speak that your certainty about why you are doing something or not doing something, it doesn't matter. I mean, the vax or not vax, that's not the point. The point is that your choice for whichever one it is that you are choosing, you have got to be really clear that you made that choice from within.
Yeah.
Your choice cannot be by what you have heard or what you have read. Your choice has to be based on the resonance of the information inside of you. You have it's like a tuning fork. You are a tuning fork, and it is vibrating at a frequency of fear or of love, period. And of course, everything in between is just moving from one to the other. But you've got to be clear that you don't need to defend anything. You don't need to quote anybody. You don't need to say, well, this doctor or that doctor says this. Don't do that, because for every doctor you quote, they have a doctor they quote. That is to get into defending your position. We have got to get clear that when we connect with God and we feel truth, that's all we need. We have got to move back to a knowingness. And then if people say, well, how do you know that that's true? Then the next thing you've got to get really comfortable is calling whatever you call your creator as being the source of where this certainty comes from. I mean, it took me a couple of years to get comfortable talking about God. I had a love-hate relationship with God since I was little, growing up Catholic, because God was the source of potential punishment for me. That's who decided if I was naughty or nice, more so than Santa Claus. And I had to work through my fear. First it was anger with God, then it was fear with God. First anger because my mom died and I felt like he took my best friend. But then what showed up really quickly was my fear of God, fear of death, fear of hell. So we've got to work through whatever blocks us from being able to give God, source, spirit credit. And I called it source, I called it a creator, I called it, great spirit. And when I had my encounter with it, it told me, here's a simple acronym, call me GESEL, G-S-E-L. And what that stood for was, I'm going to put it in here so you guys can see it, G-S-E-L. And it just stands for simply, God is the source of the energy of love. And for a very long time, those of you who knew me through that phase, that's what I referred to it. It was GESEL. That's it, because it is God is the source of the energy of love. There is only energy, and that energy is loving because it loves everything that it imagines. It loves everything that is within it, until it got to the point that, I can call it God. And it's easy to call it God because a lot of people understand God. When I would say, well, Jesus guided me, they're like, what the, who the hell is that? What is that? And so there's a lot of explaining, but God was gracious with me because it gave me that acronym so that I could slowly get comfortable with the word God. Once I knew, what, it's just the source of the energy of love. So why not just go straight to what is a common name? But God doesn't care what we call it. It knows what it is. It really doesn't care. We can call it Allah, we can call it Buddha, we can call it Bambi. It does not care. It is certain that it is what we call love. So, sweet cat, make your decisions from a place of certainty and don't defend it. Right now, the test is, are you standing in certainty with the truth that you know, or are you in fear? If you're in fear, your lessons are going to intensify and get more uncomfortable. Because if you have to learn through pain, the pain is going to intensify. Some of us are going to have to learn. If we didn't take the jab, we're going to learn about terror, as some of the people that we love maybe get really sick, extremely sick, to the point that you may have to take care of them. You may end up with an invalid you got to take care of, or you may end up with somebody who dies. The challenges are coming. Get ready. If you can learn the easy way, then you have surrendered to the flow, and you can handle whatever comes. Excuse me a second. And if you want to learn the easy way, you can't be defending how you know what you know.
I think I heard that a little differently, what Kat was saying, that she was concerned that the 10 weeks wasn't up between the time she was with somebody that was vaccinated. Did I hear that wrong?
Kat, can you clarify? That's what I heard.
That is what she said. However, if you look at the Pfizer documentation, they are saying 7 weeks. 7 to 10 is a good range.
Yes. So for 7 to 10 weeks, the unvaccinated should stay away from the vaccinated.
Right. They're shedding.
They're shedding.
It's still
Right.
circulating.
Yeah.
And what I heard is fascinating from hearing it, because it's the flip side of the coin. It's people that are getting vaccinated in general have fear of getting COVID and dying, etc. And people that are not vaccinated are in fear similarly to being around the vaccinated. So it's still the fear.
Fear is fear is
Mhm.
fear. Fear
Yeah.
is fear is fear. And this is why we are being tested. So the vaccinated are being tested with their level of fear. The non-vaccinated are being tested with their level of fear. And if we don't get honest about what our fear is, we won't be able to transcend fear. And that's one of the tricks of the ego, is to make us think that we don't have fear. One of the traps of becoming spiritual is thinking you're above fear. Cancel. I don't want to think fear. That's a low frequency. Well, that is a very powerful ego trick that tells us that facing fear is giving it permission to be there. But that's a deception of the ego, because you have to face the fear to acknowledge it has no power over you, to be able to transcend it. You can't be clear about what doesn't scare you until you have faced it and say, no, you don't scare me anymore. We have to face a monster. We have to look under the bed to see there's not a monster there. And when we get all spiritualized and we're all love and light, we don't want to look at the darkness. We want to avoid it. And let me just share with you my perception. So this world has been run primarily by very egoic people, people who are very dense in their ego, very much in the it's all about me, very greedy, very selfish, because they worship the god of money. And we've known for thousands of years that you can't worship two gods, you got to pick one. And the ego worships the god of money because since it doesn't have self-worth, it then looks for net worth to feel it is somebody. And that's why the rich get richer, because, and I'm talking about the uber rich get richer because they are in charge of the systems that make it easy for them to acquire, even if it means taking other people down. They don't care. That level of disconnect, of greed is so intense. Where was I going? I just totally drew a blank. What was I saying just before that? Can somebody remind me? Laina?
You were tying it in with the lesson today. You were about to go into our lesson for today and you were tying it together.
Okay, so it'll return.
Well, it was about what fear does to us.
Oh, yes, exactly. And it is definitely tied to the lesson. So we've got people who are so deep in their fear, in their disconnect from source, that forever we have been conditioned into believing, into operating in a state of fear that was normal. And inside of that normalness, the teachings of spirituality have been allowed, to the point that many spiritual teachers have had New York Times bestsellers, because the bulk of the spiritual teachings, especially here in the West, teach about becoming positive, teach about just cancel everything negative. And they also teach about denial, in a really powerful way, denial of that which is dark. Well, those who control New York Times bestsellers, which means they are in charge of the books that we read, the books that we think, oh my God, these are the books that we all have to read, deliberately, very deliberately allow for books to become bestsellers when the message doesn't tell you clearly, go in and undo your ego. That's why you're not going to see A Course in Miracles in the New York Times bestseller, even though Course in Miracles has sold more millions of books than Marianne Williamson has. Around the world, Course in Miracles has been translated into so many different languages, but the Course in Miracles tells you how to undo the ego, and it tells you what the ego is, and it has you face the ego. The exercises in the Course that invite you to bring up the things that are present for you. It asks you to think about the people that you have upsets with. It invites you to look at the ego so that you can transcend it. We have been conditioned into what I'm going to call spirituality light, as in fluffy spirituality, and primarily in the West. The deeper spirituality, which is to really go into a place of realizing that, you are one with all that is, but you have to face the darkness and say to the darkness, you're part of the game and you have no power over me. That kind of spirituality is what the Course in Miracles wants us to really practice, so that you realize that nothing outside of you has power over you. Yes, Latanya. Oh, wait a second. I was clicking ask to unmute at the time that you were clicking. So go ahead, unmute yourself again. Thank you.
Okay. Hello.
Hey.
Now, fear is the basis for, I guess, I was thinking about the uber rich, the reason why they get all the money that they want. What does that say for abundance? Is that the same?
Well, their focus is, see, here's why they attract so much, because they really believe that they deserve it more than anybody else. But here's the thing, the way that in the 3D world, as in the 5D world, everything is based on thought. You have to believe to receive. Those things go hand in hand, because there has to be a knowingness that activates that experience. So many of the, I'm going to call it the light workers, if you will, people who have a real clear knowing that they want to undo their ego, that they're moving deeper into operating from spirit, have this sense of lack of worth. And that has manifested, which is why most cannot attract money, because in the background, there's this lack of worth happening. Well, the uber rich, just using that term, that's who they think they are. I am my worth. So the thinking that is constantly with that is about money. While we're busy cleaning up our fears, cleaning up all our limitations, well, you can't be attracting too much of the abundance, because you're in the middle of deleting, getting rid of what doesn't serve you. So the focus is on something else. So vibrationally, we're vibrating in a different frequency. And that's just part of the way it's been in the 3D world. Going into the 5D world, we're not going to be focused on money being tied to our worth. Our sense of worth is our sense of worth based on our connection to source, our clarity that we are eternal. And when the mind is clear and no longer needing to get money to be somebody, we are somebody, and money is not what defines us. Now there's going to be a flow of what we need. The old world, the 3D world, when money defines you, winner takes all. And that's the game that we've been. That's why wealth has been transferred, because they know how to play the game by getting enmeshed in politics, by running the companies, by having, for lack of a better word, because I'm using all 3D terms, the good old boys club, where they were all taking care of each other, doing what they needed to do to move wealth, transfer wealth. You know, the housing market crash, that was all planned. And what did it do? Transferred wealth. Everything that has happened in terms of big financial things has always been deliberately planned to transfer wealth. What was that? The Great Recession, totally, completely planned to transfer wealth. So, and right now there's a big plan to completely shut down Main Street, the small businesses, to shut them down to the point that all that real estate is going to be cheap to buy by who? Those who have the money. So it is all about transferring wealth. There is a woman, and by the way, we have light workers that are not out there saying, oh, I'm spiritual. As a matter of fact, some of the most, I have found, most honest, transparent, and truly humble light workers are not calling themselves light workers. I had to go through a process or not calling themselves spiritual. I had to go through a process where I really thought, oh, being spiritual was so special. And it really is not. It's a distraction. If anything, it's an identity. But some of the most powerful spiritual beings on this planet that are assisting humanity are in the trenches. They are the ones changing the face of the financial system. They're the ones changing the face of the medical system. They're not calling themselves spiritual, but they're in there in the trenches, like that Dr. Kat that you were talking about, Dr. Lee Merritt, so many. And Catherine Austin Fitz is one that I highly recommend you listen to, because she is speaking to what's going on with the financial system. And if you are not paying attention to that, part of the fears that you will experience is when the financial systems collapse, because they have to collapse to help people see where they have made money their God. And even if you don't have a whole lot, you will face your fears if you lose $100, like you will face your fears if you lose $1 million or $1 billion. It's all going to show us where we have beliefs, what we have tied our self-worth to. So it has to be exposed. But let's get into the lesson for today, because it's really crucial for me as a teacher of A Course in Miracles to help people really understand the importance of this lesson. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. Our safety comes from being one with God. Our safety comes from knowing I and the Father, Mother, God, Source, Creator are one. If you don't feel that in your bones as the truth of your beingness, you are not clear about who you are, and therefore you cannot command the energy to work for you and manifest for you what it is that you desire. But in the fifth dimension, the manifestations are not about what can I get. They're not about how much money I can accumulate. When we clear ourselves of our idea that our net worth makes us worth something, when we clear ourselves from that and we come to the place of knowing ourselves as source, what is exciting is, what can I give to the world? What can I bring through me? Can I bring that book through me? Can I bring that formula through me, that new idea, that new course, that new, like these doctors that are out there talking about the new med beds and the new things, the new therapies. They're not thinking, oh, I'm going to get rich from med beds. They're thinking, how many people's lives can we save? How many people can we give an opportunity to shift from their fears into well-being? Like this attorney, Lynn Wood, who is being attacked for speaking truth, he has, and I follow him, he has blown through millions of his own money defending himself because he's been attacked from so many areas. Do you think he's thinking, oh, how much money I'm going to make by letting myself be attacked this way? No, he is just thinking, this country needs to be saved. We need to make sure that we do everything we can for humanity, specifically for him, for Americans to be free again. Lots of amazing patriots are I'm going to say losing. Really, they're just investing their money in what they believe is worthwhile. They're not thinking about money. But I can almost guarantee it. Well, I shouldn't say almost, I can guarantee it. When we're on the other side of this, and it's all going to change by the time that we enter into the next decade, 2030, we are going to be in a totally different place. And all of these people are going to be seen as heroes. These are the people, their wealth will come back pretty quickly, because they're going to be seen as, we're going to want to read the books that they write. We're going to want to know, how did they go through that crucifixion, where literally they were being completely shut down, ridiculed, censored, and they kept on going. That's because they were listening to something inside of them that was telling them, you have to stand for this. And they could not do what they were being inspired to do. And they are not out there defending what they believe. They are out there standing up for what they believe in a really powerful way. And every one of these, I'll call them patriots, they're light workers. They're bringing in light. They're shining the light of truth on what has been dark. Every single one of these holy beings talk about God very openly. It's absolutely beautiful to watch. And those are the ones that I am resonating with more now. I don't think I have hardly any spiritual people that I follow anymore, because I'm not hearing connecting to God. I'm not hearing standing in your truth. I'm hearing from too many spiritual leaders, do the right thing for your fellow man. You are one. Go get the job. Go do the, more of giving up your power. And it's really fascinating to watch. Not all, but some of the ones that I used to follow. That is the message. And that just shows that that we have it's a scale. And until you are totally, completely aligned with God, you're not ready to speak to that. That's where you get your information, which means that is where your certainty comes from. So let's look at this lesson. So this is lesson 153. And it is titled, "In My Defenselessness, My Safety Lies." It's an absolutely, absolutely powerful and important lesson. Paragraph 1. You who feel threatened by this changing world. How interesting, huh? Don't you love the title or the first sentence? You who feel threatened by this changing world, its twists of fortune and its bitter jests, its brief relationships and all the gifts, quote unquote, all the gifts it merely lends to take away again, attend this lesson well. We have seen the gifts come and go. We have seen the shiny things come and go. We have seen relationships that start and end. And we're seeing the world, the fortunes that move from one side to the other. Attend this lesson well. The world provides no safety. It is rooted in attack, and all its gifts of seeming safety are illusory deceptions. It attacks and then attacks again. No peace of mind is possible where danger threatens thus. Can you all relate with that? So let's look at just this one little piece, this world that attacks and then attacks again. So we got attacked with a virus this year. Then it attacked again. You got to go on lockdown. Then it attacked again. Well, now you have to have this jab to be okay. And then it attacked again. Well, the jab is not okay. You got to, get another jab. And it attacks again. Okay, you got to go back on lockdown. The ego will never, ever, ever let anything be resolved. Another example, endless wars. We got to attack this country. We got to attack that country. We got to attack this country. It attacks and attacks again. And the reason it does that is because the ego is always operating from fear. Fear that if it doesn't attack, it will be attacked. That if it doesn't do its part, it will be the one that will be destroyed. And the ego does not want to be destroyed, even though everything it does is to expose itself so that it can be seen and be done with. That's why understanding the trickiness of the ego takes time, because you have to see your own ego creating your own problems. Look at how many relationships we say we love this person, but all that comes out of our mouths are attack words. You're not doing enough. I love you, but you gotta meet this certain criteria. Oh, I love you. Oh, that was good, but now you gotta go to the next one. We have all been conditioned into believing that we will never arrive at the conclusion. We will never arrive at the love that we want, the money that we want, the peace that we want, because the ego is the one that tells us we don't have it. It's out there, and the out there keeps moving, especially when the out there is run by egos who know that if we keep it moving, we'll keep it chasing, and in our chasing, we just become exhausted. Look at humanity today. People are working unbelievable hours to barely make ends meet. Some people, it's normal for some people in certain economic realms to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. That's because the ego doesn't want anybody to ever find the gifts. And that's the reason the gifts are quote unquote in this paragraph, is because until we wake up, we don't realize that the gift we've always been looking for is the certainty of who we are inside. The love that we've been looking for is inside, because we've got to come and find our treasure inside. When you find your treasure, then you want to share it. That's how creation continues, is through the extension of that which is good and beautiful and lovely. So this particular paragraph is the start to something really, really clear that is happening today, because when Jesus channeled this information 50 years ago, it was clear the trajectory we were headed down. If you If you want to really understand the ego outside of you, notice the ego inside of you. Pay attention to all of the things that your ego has done to you since your birth. You know, and some of you that I've coached that were adopted, you've got a lot of insecurities because you were adopted. What's wrong with me? Why did my mom want me? So, and some in the womb. You know, I was born a girl. My dad wanted a boy. From the moment I made my appearance on this planet, I was immediately unwanted. I carried that story with me for a very long time. If only I had been a boy. And I carry this idea, if only I could have done this, if only I remember. That was a regular story. And if only I was a normal part of my conversations. If only I could have gotten that job. If only I could, I could never achieve anything because I was, if only I. When you see in your own personal life, the trajectory of how the ego has taken you from the beginning of your incarnation, like I said, including in the womb, if you see the way the ego has been operating in your life, you'll be able to see the way the ego operates in the outer world, because the outer world is made up of people with egos. So if you want to take the story of the United States of America, you can see Course in Miracles happens around, it gets channeled, 55, 60 years ago. What was going on in this country at that time, that you can hear a statement that Jesus is making at that time that says, you who feel threatened by this changing world, its twists and turns and all of that, is because Jesus was watching the trajectory of what the human ego was doing in humanity. Not only does a president that was in the process of changing this country, moving from corruption to moving it towards transparency, gets assassinated. I'm talking about Kennedy. So right about that time, we've got an opportunity to begin to look at that there have been people who've been wanting to move out of the egoic greed and shift things, and they don't make it. Well, as within, so without. How many times, if you look at the trajectory of your ego, did your ego sabotage you? And times that you had opportunities to shift and lift into something grand, you sabotaged and you kept yourself from moving forward. As within, so without. For me, one of the most powerful experiences in observing my ego was when I began to see that the external ego in humanity, when I began to track how ego sabotages externally, for example, the housing market. When I began to pay attention, this is where too many spiritual people get all up in the love and light books, and they don't want to read about history. They don't want to read about what's happening in the world. It's too negative. Cancel. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I went through a period like that. I think we kind of have to go through a period like that. Cancel all the negativity so that we can really focus on what is good. That is a stage of the journey. We cannot avoid that. We have to go to the we bounce. If we stayed only looking at the dark stuff, we probably would go crazy, which probably puts a lot of people in the insane asylum. But we have to bounce and have moments that we just sit in love and light and do our crystals and do our tarot cards, and it's all love and wonderful and fluffy, and it's necessary. Because you have to strengthen yourself in knowing that love is real before you can face what is absolutely ugly and look at it and not let it debilitate you. Because this world that is run by those who worship what the ego says have created some horrendous things. And we have got to get clear that only love is real. Because until you are clear that everybody's playing a role and it's an energy that can express itself in any ways that it can, the only reason it is going this dark is to activate more light. So Jesus knew, you guys are moving towards some challenging times. Let me give you a book that will help you get through what is coming. Let me go to paragraph 2. The world gives rise but to defensiveness. Aren't you seeing that right now? people defending the vaccine, defending the mask mandates, defending this, defending that. When you're in fear and you've been conditioned for, let's say just in America, for hundreds of years, that government knows better for you, that medicine knows better for you, you're going to defend them. And you're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you're on the good side. You don't want to get on the bad side of the law. Haven't we been trained? Don't get on the bad side of the law. So now we're defending for them. Isn't that a beautiful plan? The ego is so conniving. It does what it does. And then it goes on to train others because the ego operates. And I'm going to go into a lot more of this when I do the ego training. The ego is like a coin. It has two faces, two sides of the same coin forms the ego. One side is the victim, one side is the bully. The bully needs a victim. So there is always going to be the dynamic, and you only need a few bullies to get a whole lot of victims. You know, that's just the formula, if you will. So the ego trains its victims to defend it. And I think there's even a term for that, some kind of syndrome where the abuser gets their victim to say, oh yeah, I deserve this. This was justified. I don't remember the name of that syndrome, but I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. And we have been, hey sweetie, we have been trained into submission, but not because we were not powerful, but we actually gave our power away because the promise of giving our power away was for safety. So those who are defending, the world gives rise but to defensiveness, are defending what they think keeps them safe. And that's why the ego, or this particular lesson, is in your defenselessness, your safety lies, because you need to know your eternalness is where you're grounded in safety. So look at the things that you defend. Those are the things that now are going to be turning on us, because we've got to let go of everything that we believe the world holds as valuable. We've got to see that the thing that we've been defending is a thing that has been attacking us. Do you see how absolutely insane and how convoluted and how sick this is? That's what happens to a mind that has denied God. It has denied love. It is totally, completely self-absorbed, and it will not stop until it wins. The insanity of the ego, this is why the last, what's it, 4 or 5 iterations of humanity, they completely destroy themselves, is because here's the crazy thing of the ego. If the ego got to play its story all the way out, and it won't, using what's happening here, because we'll understand this, in this grab for money and power, getting rid, the story is they want to get rid of 95% of the population, because they feel in their arrogance that 95% of the population is below the quality that they would like. The quality that they want is people with changed DNA, people that are a superior race. And when you begin to look at the big picture, again, this is why it's so important at some point in your journey, you pay attention to what's happening outside. When you begin to look at the big picture of the ego wanting a very pure race, isn't that what the Nazis wanted? A pure race? Well, what is eugenics all about? Getting rid of what it considers a lesser race. All of the tests that were done on indigenous people or African American people to get rid of those not as pure races. When you begin to study, what is his name? Epstein, and you begin to see what that man was doing and who he was hanging out with, these billionaires that were wanting to create a superior race where he was going to be the father of all of these children that were going to be part of this new race. Once they got rid of the 95%, there was going to be this superior race where Epstein was considered one of the purest of the purest that was going to father through all of these girls that he was part of this human trafficking, or let's call it what it is, pure child abuse. When you begin to see that in its deluded mind, those who are so greedy and selfish, when there's only 5% of them left, do you think that they were going to live happily ever after? No. Then they were going to start turning on each other. And then that 5%, there would be a few there that said, well, we got to get rid of the 95% within the 5% that are left, until there was one left, because the ego wants to be the only one that wins. So it destroys and destroys and destroys. This is why the ego is all about devolving. It's about collapsing and destroying, where God is about evolving, expanding, and moving towards just infiniteness. So the world gives rise, but to defensiveness. We've been defending what is actually sending everybody to the, jump off of the cliff. Sentence 2 says, for threat brings anger. Anger makes attack seem reasonable, honestly provoked, and righteous in the name of self-defense. Can you relate with that statement? Aren't you seeing those who have been moved into anger about those who are unvaxxed, and they can attack them in the same families, and it seems reasonable, honestly provoked, and righteous in the name of self-defense? You are hurting me. Now listen to what happens when somebody says you are hurting me. They don't know they're eternal. They have no clue that they're eternal. Otherwise they wouldn't say you have power over me. They wouldn't be afraid. The other thing that the ego does is it tricks us into believing that other people are responsible for our happiness, our safety. And inside of the spiritual community, this is alive and well right now today. Watching healers basically putting out their messages that, what, you're not vaxxed, you don't care, you're not loving, you're not spiritual enough, for, because when you have to go outside of yourself to find your safety, that's not God. That's not God at all. So you're not connected to God, you're connected to ego. If you're connected to ego, you are shaking in your boots because you're afraid. You're afraid because if you don't get them to do what you need them to do, you are going to be the one who's going to die. So listen to the fear inside of everybody that is attempting to get you to change whatever it is that you feel comfortable with for you, that doesn't let them feel comfortable with where they are. Yet is defensiveness a double threat, for it attests to weakness and sets up a system of defense that cannot work. Let me explain this. The double threat of defensiveness. When I saw this in me, when I was defending myself with my former husband, I realized every single time that I went into defending myself, what my ego was telling me in the background is, you are weak. You need him to stop doing what he's doing for you to be okay. So it was telling me that as it says here, that I was somehow weak. Why didn't I just walk out and say, fine, I'm done? Because the ego had me believe that I needed him to change for me to be okay. And that's the double threat. Not only are you the problem, but until you change, I cannot be okay. So there's issues on both sides. The problem outside and my inability to deal with what is going on the inside. This is that double threat of the ego. So specifically to somebody who is in terror because their partner didn't get the jab. What they're saying is, you can hurt me. You can kill me. I can get sick because of you. What that tells them inside is, but because I'm not eternal, I'm weak. I cannot survive this without you changing your behavior. So inside of them, they don't know, they cannot know that they can connect to source and find their power, find their strength. They cannot activate their healing themselves. They don't believe that healing comes from them. It comes from the outside. So they're in a double bind. This is why our defenselessness will give them an opportunity to feel somebody who feels peace, which is the very thing that they most desire, because they're not at peace inside. They are in a constant state of anxiety. When the ego runs our lives, there is no peace, none whatsoever. So now are the weak still further undermined, for there is treachery outside of them, and still a greater treachery within. The mind is now confused and knows not where to turn to find escape from its imaginings. So as long as the outside is the source of their safety, they're going to do everything they can to change the outside, keeping them on the inside in such a state of anxiety, they cannot find the peace of God within. They cannot find their own strength. They cannot find the voice of reason inside of them that would help them come out of their insanity. This is why this pandemic is a blessing in disguise for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. It is forcing humanity to face its worst fears. And according to the Course in Miracles, there are four big fears. Now that's a whole different class, because that's so big in and of itself. One is the fear of death, the fear that the body is going to die. The other fear is that the body is not going to work while it's alive. So fear of sickness, fear of not being perfect, not being beautiful. The third fear is the fear of guilt. We carry an incredible amount, the ego has an incredible amount of guilt. And that in and of itself is a powerful, powerful learning, because the ego is created from the belief that I'm separate from God. Remember, ego, two sides of the same coin. There's the bully. I am better than God. I created myself. God didn't create me. And there's the victim side. The victim carries the guilt. When God finds out that I am denying it, it's going to come after me. And that leads to the fourth fear, which is the fear of God. So the body takes two of the big fears, death and that I don't look good, or that my body is not good enough, or whatever. So we have got to understand that the people who need others to get jabbed or get masked or stay away or whatever it is, they are terrorized inside. But inside of them is that little bit of guilt that is the ego knows deep inside, I'm creating a lot of messes for myself that are unnecessary. And that is what we have to tap in other people, is to not activate their guilt, but rather to begin to activate their light and say, you know what? I get it. You're scared. You're whatever. You don't want to be around me. That's okay. I respect you. You are worth me respecting. You deserve to find your peace. And if your peace comes to you by me staying away or whatever it might be, we have to begin to let them know that they deserve to have what they want, because we have to plant the seeds that our thoughts create our reality. And if you believe that's going to help you, then good for you, it will help you. If you believe that that's how you're going to find peace, then that's how you're going to find your peace. Don't argue with people who are insane because they cannot hear us, but they can hear. The Holy Spirit inside of them is waiting for us to drop the seeds of a higher frequency that says, you know, you're okay. You deserve to have what you want. Because if they don't find inside of them a sense of being valued for who they are, it doesn't activate that desire to find peace. Their attacks to us keep them in an anxiety that keeps the noise of the ego so loud that they can't hear the voice for God inside of them. So this is why it says here, the last sentence, number 6, the mind is now confused and knows not where to turn to find escape from its own imaginings. We've got to drop seeds. You're fine. You're good. You're worthy. That's what I did with Ken. That's what I did with Spencer when he was doing drugs. I never told Spencer there's something wrong with you for doing drugs like everybody else did. I said to him, hey, this is the reality you're wanting to create. I respect it. And in that, there was something that over 4 years of hearing the same thing was clicking. What? I'm creating my reality. I deserve to have it be the way I want it. Well, if I deserve to have it be the way I want it, why am I creating from fear? Why do I keep creating what I don't want? Everybody is going to find the truth that they are seeking really soon, because we are about to flip from an ego world to a God world. So I promise you, everybody's going to discover all of the things that they have been believing that are not true. It has to happen. Paragraph 3 says, it is as if a circle held it fast, wherein another circle bounded and another one in that, until escape no longer can be hoped for nor obtained. Let me do a little drawing. And I like that there's this little whiteboard here. So remember earlier I talked about, let's see, let me undo that. Trying to move this out of the way. Here we go. Earlier I talked about the ego devolves and the Holy Spirit evolves. So think of all of this whiteboard being you before you incarnated. You are one with the source of all that is. And let's say Patricia decides to incarnate and she takes on a physical body, and she knows before she is born that she is going to devolve into a very small idea of who she is to be able to just be Patricia. And Laina does the same thing. In consciousness, Laina chooses to come in and devolve into a small idea of what she can possibly be. When we are non-physical, we're one with all that is. There's no division, there's no identity. Laina decides to incarnate the soul that I am and come in and devolve into a tiny idea of who I am. Dr. Vern did the same thing. Dondra did the same thing. Lisa did the same thing. And we picked the right parents to make us think that we're smaller than what we are. Does that make sense looking at that? So what is this saying? We have a circle upon circle upon circle of beliefs and ideas that keep us pretty tight and tense. Now, I probably am a little too generous with these circles. It really is more like this. Really tight, really tense. There's not a whole lot of room for space there. And it gets to where if you get into the very bottom of a little seashell, you know, the ones that are spiral like a nautilus, it's really dark in there. Our world gets really small and very dark. A lot of fear because you have separated yourself with layers and layers. This is why you have to peel the layers of the onion. Does that make sense? These are beliefs that we picked up over and over from childhood, and we live inside of a very small idea of who we are, defending this little identity, our egoic identity, me against the world. So now if I'm really scared in here, I need to make sure you put on your mask because you can affect me. I need you to get your jab because you can affect me. So the mind is so diluted in circles upon circles upon circles of poor me. The government has to take care of me. People can hurt me. We hear the songs, love hurts. We hear the messages, you can't trust anybody. We hear the messages, watch out for strangers. We hear the messages that have us devolved into a very small possibility of who we are. The spiritual journey is the journey about, oh shoot, I didn't mean to erase the whole thing. Let me see if I can do it here. Oh, it just erases the whole thing. Well, you know what I meant to do. You are, let me see if I can do it differently. if it lets me do oh no, wait, that's not what I want. Never mind. I can't go back to what I was doing. Okay, so we have to undo the circle little by little by little. This is a big journey of unwinding our mind out of the beliefs that we have had to evolve out until we go back to the beginning of who we are, like my little grandson Ryder, like we were all born, reclaim our love and light, and then begin to expand ourselves into our infinite potential. The world that we are in deliberately, because those who have been running the systems understand the way the mind works. They just don't understand the heart. That's why they're cut off. They live from their head. Everything is analytical. It's money. It's stuff. It's data. That's why the egos that run the world have created so much red tape, because everything gets convoluted. Everything is so difficult, layers upon layers of things that to a mind that is connected to God is going, why is it so complicated? Haven't you all experienced that with government lately? Everything is so freaking complicated. So we have to evolve out of our small-mindedness. This is why when you're doing the love and light work, you need a break from all the negativity and all the darkness, because you can only handle so much of your fears at one time. However, to evolve a whole humanity, we are going to have the crap scared out of us, which is what's happening, to force people into the mass awakening. So sentence number 2 in paragraph 3 says, attack, defense, defense, attack become the circles of the hours and the days that bind the mind in heavy bands of steel with iron overlaid, returning but to start again. There seems to be no break nor ending in the ever-tightening grip of the imprisonment upon the mind. Remember the days, maybe some of you are experiencing them now, where your mind is in a constant state of worry and fear, and you go to bed and you have nightmares, and you wake up and you pick up those fears right back up again, and the worry and the list and the can't get this done. The mind doesn't rest. When the ego takes over, it's chatter. This is how the ego keeps us confused. We are regurgitating those thoughts, those beliefs. They're just happening and getting to the point that it is absolutely insane in our own mind. Why do you think people enter into addictions? They drink their way, they drug their way, they sex their way, they shop their way. I shouldn't say they, me. To find relief that never comes, because the relief that we get from anything external is temporary. This is why we're always chasing a carrot. The ego has us chasing a carrot that we can never catch. Let me read one more paragraph, and then I want to get what you guys, you know what, let's talk about this so far. Is this making sense? Is this giving you ahas? If it is, please, I want to hear about them so that we can all share what we're learning here and hearing. Lawana, you were shaking your head. Can you unmute yourself? Thanks.
Well, I don't really have a comment to add other than I totally get everything you're saying. And it's so wonderful because of the battle that's going on inside my head, dealing with so much of this. And to have the clarity that fits with my soul that I knew anyway. So awesome. Yes. Awesome.
You are not crazy. You just have crazy talk in your head, and you can turn that crazy talk off. You have power.
And this is what the course has really helped me with. It's distinguishing the difference of the egoic mind and my heart, my soul, and my connection with God. And
exactly. Because once you distinguish a difference, you know the one that feels better. You know the one you're going to choose.
And also the point that you brought up about, so you spend so much time, I'm really listening to a lot of people and gathering a lot of information because I want to know. And I can feel when I get too far into that, and it's not fear. So I'm beyond the fear. There may be some fear that creeps in, but overall I'm beyond the fear. It's just kind of prepping, being prepared, but just having this higher knowing of of what direction to go in to the best of my ability with my connection. So it's really interesting how I do have to back away and spend some time in nature, I spend more time in meditation in areas like that, making my foods and nourishing my body with these high vibrational foods. All that is helping to create the balance. So I mean, it's still, I'm not, I mean, it's work in progress, but it's been, I've noticed that I've had to spend more time backing away to merely be connected to, I don't know, and to continue to move forward.
Yeah, well, as the mind gets lighter, there is a natural desire for the body to get lighter also with foods, with being more in nature. There's, because it's vibration, it's a resonance. So the foods have a vibration, the music has a vibration. You stop listening to certain things, to certain people, to certain songs, because vibrationally they don't resonate anymore. This is why we've got to get the mind quiet. We got to stop the craziness in the head so that we can start feeling more with the body. The body is a tuning fork. And it's vibrating. It's letting us know where we are. And in the fifth dimension, we need a body that is vibrating at a really high frequency, because in a higher frequency, it's a frequency of evolution. It's a frequency of sharing, of expressing, of extending. That's where there's no selfishness in that. Where the ego is the frequency of devolving, polluting the body, putting music that is hateful, putting food that has no life in it. Boxed food, all that stuff has to go. Eventually you let go of that. I'm still working. I still like chips. So sometimes I still do have to
Well, of
eat
course,
the chips.
I mean, me as well, but it's interesting. And I feel like that's going to be more and more people are waking up to that aspect. And that's the start just with that, and how the jab and everything's related to the physical body.
Yes.
So I'm really sensing an awakening there that people are experiencing now with just this topic of cleaning their bodies up. And
Yes.
that's going to turn.
And so many of the doctors that are being censored, or the teachers that are being censored, are speaking of natural immunity, of healthy, of keeping your body, of sunlight, of vitamins, natural vitamins, of being in nature, that we do need to expose our body outside, not be confined in the home. Well, that's because the powers that be understand that we would all totally, completely would not put up with this if we were out in the sunshine more and connected to nature and eating healthy things, because we would not tolerate being controlled. You wouldn't tolerate being controlled. Think of little children. Remember when we were little, or your kids were little, and they were outside playing all the time? Do you remember how much we hated, or our children hated, when we called them to come inside? They didn't like being controlled and brought inside. They wanted to stay outside and play in the mud puddles, and whether it was rain or snow or whatever it was, they liked being outside, because our soul knows that we are born free. And coming home, even if it was a lovely home, to a warm meal, the soul doesn't want to be confined. So yes, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Who else wants to share? Yes, Patricia.
I recently noticed my ego getting triggered. And it had to do with my religious programming, because I've been in organized religion most of my life, particularly the last 40 years. And I was watching something on YouTube of a lady who was actually born in the Illuminati, and has come out of it, and is a Christian now, and is very popular on a lot of different talk shows. And she said something about the false light and the order of Melchizedek, which is a false light, and they think that they are gods. And that triggered me. I know those passages in the Bible, the order of Melchizedek, where Abraham, they go out, they help Abraham in the Old Testament. And then I'm pretty sure Christ said, "Ye are gods." Just one sentence thrown out there. And anyway, that triggered me, and my ego was saying, see, you're being deceived. You're wrong. That they're wrong. You need to go back to those Christian programming. And I noticed it, and it really was disturbing to my spirit, because I don't want to be deceived. I feel like I've been deceived my whole life, and and I'm always searching for truth. And that was just something on the religious line of programming. But I have always watched the darkness, even in the church. I always knew what was happening with the darkness, prophecy and the UN and the Agenda 21 and all that. I always watched it, but nobody wanted to hear what I saw or what I had to say. And I was actually squelched within the church not to speak because, well, you're a woman and you might frighten the other women. So I left the church and I moved far, far, far away to another continent where I live now. And I walked away from all my Christian programming and religion, but it's still in me. And it gets triggered in that particular incident when I was listening to this woman who had a lot of knowledge about the darkness and how it operates. So I try not to stay in fear, but that sent me into fear. I don't fear for myself, but I fear for my loved ones.
Yeah. Well, this is where the Course invites you to ask God, what would you have me do with this fear? What would you have me do with this belief? Because every single belief that activates discomfort is a belief that is not true. You're believing something that is not true. Ultimately, it's not real and has no power over you. So at the end of the day, the mind that is completely at peace, like Jesus's mind, knows that it is one with God, knows that it is one with consciousness, knows that you are pure energy. And in that field of consciousness, of knowingness, there is nothing physical. There is nothing that can harm you, nothing that can affect you. So when you can get your mind to accept your eternal non-physical self, that thought is just an opportunity for you to have an experience. If you're done with that experience, say, you know what, I'm done with that experience. Remove fears from your mind by acknowledging that they are not powerful over you. They're just letting you know what was programmed. And the more you can take yourself to that more expanded space that can see all the fears like there are inside of you, almost like, well, not almost like, exactly like this. This is what's happened to all of us. This is our mind. This is our mind, which is the same thing as God. All of us are separate beings. This is our mind, and we have separate thoughts. We have separate thoughts. When you're done with that thought, do this, be done with it. But we have millions and millions of thoughts that have been so repetitive, we have to look at them over and over again. But the goal is to completely eradicate the thoughts that are not serving us, because what happens is Source then begins to inspire us. Then we begin to have creativity come into us. And that is where we want to go to, is let God's ideas, and I'm not sure how I can let God's ideas flow in. And they're just going to be, little blips, but they're not ever going to be condensed. They're not tied to anything. They're not going to devolve. These are life-giving thoughts that when we put it with somebody else's thoughts, we're going to create something else. And we're going to create something that's never been before, because we will come together to share. The ego has us be so separate and condensed, but we have the ability, we have the power to erase anything that is not serving us. We can get rid of it by choice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Who else from listening to this? In your defenselessness, your safety lies. Yes, Christo.
Well, yesterday I had another level of epiphany. Last several days with the FDA coming in and approving the trial vaccine to full use. And then, I've been discussing things with associates in business and friends locally and internationally. And many of them have had the vaccine and are now going to have the vaccine. And now I've been keeping contact with everybody and talking about my understandings and passions and research And we all, I felt many of them, well, we were all on the same page, but yet I had this feeling that, I started getting this feeling that we're not on the same page. And it's almost like a fear of, I'm actually alone. You know, I have to make these decisions alone. How am I going to do that if everything comes down to the point where I'm totally alone? And at the moment I am alone. My beloved is a few thousand miles away. So that accentuated the feeling of, how am I going to do this? Who's going to help me? I'm totally alone. And in that moment, the answer came. And I was reflected totally towards my inner part. You're not alone. You're totally connected to everyone and everything. The animals, the vegetation, the works. And it was, you know, because I do meditation, so I know that feeling, but it took me so deep into the recognition. And it relates so much to what we're doing, those lines there now, and these ideas, when you practice in connecting with yourself, they come in so fast and furious. The moment you start leaning outside yourself to the fears, the default is to go inside. And that was so wonderful to have that experience and the recognition that we are just everything, and to remain connected to that on a regular basis. So, and just everything you've been talking about is just a strong reminder of that we will be able to chart our way as individual sparks of God to where we need to be based on who we are. It's it's wonderful. I thought I'd share that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And
oh, and another aspect to it was, you know, like what I was thinking of before, it no longer had the ability to stick on me. It was like water off a duck's back. The moment I connected to my inner connection and the recognition that I am everything, that I never do anything alone. I never do it. Even though I think I'm making up the story of myself, I'm not making it up alone. I'm tapping in to the source of who I am. And nothing can stick on the outside to me. Like I'm greased up, you know. So yeah, that's it. Thanks. Complete.
thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's part of the egoic trick, is to make us feel we are alone, so devolved into our own little story. That's why we have to have our own personal crucifixion. We have to crucify that story of the small me, the one that thinks it's alone, and really allow ourselves to have moments. And this is a suggestion for you this week. Spend some time in contemplation of you as one with all that is. Let your mind just totally drop the barriers and expand until you truly are connected with everything. Because all of our suffering is by believing we're disconnected. God wanted to experience life on planet Earth. That's why this Earth was created. That's why the universe is created, to have experiences on different places and different levels of frequencies and different states of beingness with different things. And we really are meant to be on this planet as if it is heaven on earth, as if it is the Garden of Eden, where everything is provided for us. We are moving to that. This is why we've got to keep our eye on the prize. The Course teaches that we have to have a goal, and the goal with the Holy Spirit, as I've said quite a few times, is for us to enjoy our life in total freedom, because that's how we're going to be happy. Life, liberty, and happiness. And that is what we were designed to experience. So as you let your mind expand into you knowing that only goodness is coming, then you will be much more grateful. At some point you do get grateful when all of the obstacles to that fall away. And what is happening is all of the obstacles to that are falling away, including the physical body. And if you get to the place that you begin to accept that you are eternal, then you will be totally okay with death, yours and other people's deaths. And you will realize that, so what if you drop the body? So what? Your essence is still present, and your essence will reincarnate in a planet that will be more evolved. So if you maintain that level of joy and enjoy the breaking down of the prison, that's all that's happening. But for the prison to break down, we have to see we've been in a prison. And because we've been in a mental prison, we couldn't see the bars. The bars are showing themselves now. We're now seeing the prison cell. We're seeing that it's a cell inside of a cell inside of a cell inside of a cell. But it's all only possible to confine you if your mind agrees with it having power over you. But as much as you can, expand, sit in expansion and let yourself expand to the farthest reaches that you can possibly go. Who else would like to share about what you're receiving from this lesson? Yes, Lisa.
I underlined that sentence in paragraph 2 that says, for threat brings anger. Anger makes attack seem reasonable, honestly provoked, and righteous in the name of self-defense. And it just reminds me so much of that Facebook conversation I had with my cousin, going back and forth about, she's so righteous, and anybody that doesn't get the jab is selfish. And, blaming Republicans or whatever it was. And she was just coming from a place of fear.
Yeah.
Just coming, I see things so clearly now.
Yeah.
I just hope that, coming from a place of love, that people can understand that it's okay. But to live in fear is just your thoughts, your thought process.
Yes. So this is where we have got to be examples of peaceful people. And those of you who were on Facebook with me and saw that when I stated that I was supporting Trump, you saw all the attacks that I got. And I was extremely kind and compassionate with each person. I thanked them. Thank you for sharing your perspective. And I had so many people messaging me, oh my God, Laina, I cannot, the way that you responded to that person who attacked you was amazing. And that's when I realized, wow. So not only are people paying attention to one who attacks and one who just totally is defenseless, but it was making an impact that I didn't realize until I had that experience via Facebook. And that was to me so profound, because I realized being defenseless, people really see that. Right now, we're very used to what attack and defensiveness looks like, but defenselessness in this world is not so normal. So we have to be those examples. And listen, when somebody's attacking you and you see your ego rising into self-defense, that's when you get to observe it and say, no, I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to believe that I'm weak and need defense. I want to acknowledge and strengthen that I am eternal, that I am okay, that their words really don't matter. We used to hear this when we were children. Those of us who are about the same age, sticks and stones might break my bones, but words can never hurt me. We've got to get back to that. Their words cannot affect us. And even the sticks and stones do not alter your eternal self. They might affect your physical body, but it's temporary. It's an outfit, it's a costume. You don't want to play the role forever. It's temporary. You knew this would be a temporary gig. And we've got to get comfortable practicing defenselessness. That's how you're going to actually begin to feel how powerful you are. That, to me, that experience with standing up for vocalizing my support of Trump really taught me how strong I was inside, and my strength came from my gentleness. I wanted to prove to myself that the Course in Miracles was right. It's amazing. We've had it so backwards, and it creates so much suffering when we are misinformed. And the Course wants to inform us to correct our misinformation. Let me read one more paragraph, because this is a pretty lengthy lesson. So let's read one more paragraph and see, maybe even two, if at least one, and then pick up where we left off next time. So defenselessness, this is paragraph number 4. Defenseless or defenses are the costliest of all of the prices which the ego would exact. In them lies madness in a form so grim that hope of sanity seems but to be an idle dream beyond the possible. The sense of threat the world encourages is so much deeper and so far beyond the frenzy and intensity of which you can conceive that you have no idea of all the devastation it has brought. When I read that, I just feel that we have lived generation after generation after generation being trained that war is justified, that it is okay to take people to court and attack them, that you deserve a defense system. I mean, the ego has set it up. We've got legal systems because the ego needed a way to defend itself. We have the defense attorney. We have set up so many systems that have perpetuated the ego structure. The ego thought system inside has been placed outside. The false authorities inside have been given expression outside. The judges that know better for us, the authorities that know better for us, the teachers who teach us, because information comes from the outside, the government who needs to tell you what to do because you're not smart enough on your own. We have just been participating in misinformation for thousands of years, because the game is to come in here to bring love and light to the planet and then extend it to co-create. But we got trapped in a cycle where the ego took over, and every generation it strengthens and it strengthens and it strengthens itself. And we have a lot of undoing to do. We are the generation that has the ability at this time to rise our consciousness up above the egoic way of thinking, move into the place of realizing our oneness, and go to the place that really honors that we all deserve to be free. We all deserve life, liberty, and to pursue our happiness, however that looks. Everybody deserves that. Because until we see that everybody deserves that, we will tolerate that some don't get it. And we have lived tolerating slavery at some level. If it wasn't, if it's not here in this country, we tolerate slavery in other countries because we've been conditioned to believe that we want everything cheap and fast. And to get it cheap and fast, it's got to be produced in India, where people, I mean, our holy brothers and sisters work for pennies. We saw, some of us saw the videos not too long ago in China, people jumping out of windows because they were so tired of working 18-hour days for pennies that they thought it'd be better just to jump off of a 20-story building and die than to continue to work that way so Americans can have cheap stuff. I mean, so, but we've been so focused on the slavery of the African Americans here as a distraction to keep us fighting one another, so we wouldn't see the slavery that's happening around the world, the slavery of the children that are enslaved into horrendous things. And when you can start facing the darkness and you can look at it and go, wow, we have permitted this, not to go into the judgment of it, but to say, no, this is not okay. This is not okay. And through our awareness, we begin to realize that we deserve so much better. As a collective, we deserve so much better. And at the same time, the darkness, it's possible because God gave us free will. Our liberty allows for us to devolve. And then when we have devolved enough, we say, okay, enough of this. And then we begin the evolution process, the expansion process. So we have a big job. We really have a big job, but it starts with us. And then it is about allowing everybody to be where they are, because in our accepting of them where they are and not defending ourselves, we're teaching a big lesson. And people don't like to hear when they're attacking you, you saying, you know what, you can think whatever you think, it's okay. I still love you, even though we don't see things the same way, but I've learned to come inside and get my guidance from God. And that guidance is telling me that you are magnificent, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you get to create your reality how you want to, because I'm creating mine how I want to. Yes, Dr. Verne.
Yes, I've been on the phone with the VA since 11 o'clock this morning, even when the class has been going on. So that's why I've been kind of quiet. I just wanted to share something. The last probably week or so, I've invested some time watching some docudramas around the founding of the country, about the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, founding fathers, things like that. I came across one that was a docudrama, which is really good. It was like a big, long, 5-hour movie. And what I wanted to share is that watching that, how it was founded and all the things they went through and the arguments and everything's going back and forth. It's like you can see pieces of it. It's like history repeating itself. One of the biggest things that happened is that when they were working on the Constitution, they were in the hall and they were screaming and yelling at each other. That took about 20 minutes. And then finally Washington said, stop. And everybody just stopped. And he said, we need to talk to God for a while. And it got all quiet and they all bowed their heads. And it was about 5 minutes silence in a movie. That's a lot of dead space in a movie, but it was very, very powerful. And then they came back and they were able to come to some type of resolution. I just wanted to point that out, and throughout all of it and all the reading I've done, there's always been a return. When total chaos is there, is they return to God, because they knew that they were dealing with something that was real, that was God created, and that they had a role in it, but they had to be able to deal with it. So you get a chance. By the way, one of them is called Washington. It's a miniseries on YouTube. It's like 4 parts, and it's a very well produced. It's an older one. I think it's made in 1989, something like that. But you get a chance to really see the history, and then there's a part 2 of it as well. But I just wanted to mention that because with what's going on right now, it's exactly the same. Just like I went back and I revisited Atlas Shrugged, which was always one of my favorite books, to see how, just like when the Course was written during the 50s, well, Atlas Shrugged was written during the 50s, and it talks about what's going on right now. I mean, across the board, everything that's going on right now is in Atlas Shrugged. So it's interesting that there is a tremendous amount of history that's available to us that kind of helps us understand what's going on now. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And notice how getting quiet and going to God is something that this country has done a really good job of avoiding. We don't teach meditation in this country. We discourage people having quiet time. We like to fill our time with as much distraction as possible. so that we don't go into the stillness, into listening to God. And one of the biggest shifts for me throughout this journey came it was October 16th, 2007, when I had my encounter of the best kind. And I experienced myself as one with all that is. And that's when I say I had my encounter with God. And I realized that the creative source created us really for joy. And that's why I said to me, if your life is not fun and easy, you're not aligned with me. You're trying to do your own thing, because that source wants to create and expand. And everything is always for the greater good of all, because it knows it is all with everything. And the ego mind is about separating us from that truth. Because if you live in that truth, you can't be in the ego. And to be in the ego requires that you block the truth. And that's why the Course wants us to understand those two thought systems, so that we can get back to the one that makes us happy. It's the only source of happiness. And it requires that we get quiet and get to know God. We have to cultivate a personal relationship with the God of our own understanding. And even though we may come to that experience in lots of different ways, they're infinite. There is a consistency with every single person that has come to feel the essence of God. There are very consistent attributes. Everybody says it felt peaceful. It felt love. I mean, and most people say it's so hard to describe, because the mind, the egoic mind, is conditioned in things that block what God is. So we have no concept of what that level of love, that level of peace, that level of knowingness that you are one with everything, that level of awareness that what you are is non-physical. We don't teach that as a possibility here. So we have a lot of work to do to come inside and connect with God and find the God of our own understanding, at the same time facing the ego belief, so that you can see that which is real and cannot be threatened, which is your connection to God, and that which is not real. And the reason it's not real, what the ego has created, the reason it's not real, is once you stop thinking that it has power over you, it begins to disappear from your mind. That's what makes the mind quiet, is all of those, I'm not good enough, I'm not special, and I'm better than, I'm lesser than. When you're not thinking all those thoughts, your ego little by little begins to disappear, because it lives, it's maintained by those thoughts. So next Wednesday, because of this trip ended up being not what I had originally planned, I was only come for a couple of days, and then my daughter's husband ended up with a job that took him away for 2 weeks. So that's why I came to help Lauren. And so delightful to be able to spend that much time with Ryder. The day that I have to leave is on Wednesday. So we will not meet next Wednesday, because I'll actually be at the airport getting ready to get on a plane, so that Lauren could go drop me off on the same day, and about the same time her husband's coming back. So she lives about an hour and a half from Denver. So to make it easy for her not to have to make 2 trips in one day, or whatever, even in 2 days, we put it all in one day. And I had to sacrifice my time with you guys, but we will be together in spirit. And then Vern, I'll get together with you to talk about how to do the Tuesday night, because I loved your idea of being able to get together in person and also have people Zoom in. So I will reach out to you later to start working on that. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am so grateful knowing so many amazing beings that are so committed to not only accepting your magnificence, your eternalness. Really, you have to accept the good and the power that you have. Because when you ground yourself in that, that's when we begin to together break down everything that is unlike love, is unlike truth. So have compassion for those who are in a lot of fear. Acknowledge that you're glad that they have their decisions and they have their ways of feeling better about, whatever it is that they're doing, and let them know as best as you can. And when you can, check in why, that you're getting your answers from inside, that you're getting your certainty from source within. Let yourself express that, because that's what the world needs now more than anything. Is we got to bring God back. And let's see, you just put there the George Washington 2, The Forging of a Nation, the mini series. Very cool. Part 1, and so there's a couple of parts. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, don't just read spiritual stuff. Expand your mind about what's been going on in the world so that you have a balanced awareness of what happens when we are disconnected from God. We create a world that has been perpetuating suffering. We need to understand it, not to judge it, but to see what's possible when we disconnect from God. That's what this is all about. If you disconnect from God and you cultivate an ego, you edge God out, which means you edge love out, you edge joy out, you edge expansion out, creativity gets edged out. And that's it. Thank you all so much. So I will see you in 2 weeks for Wednesday. And I guess that falls also in 2 weeks for Tuesday. Isn't that perfect? Love you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Take
Bye-bye.
Have
care.
a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Nice having you here, John.
Blessings to you and to all your little ones and the family.
And blessings to you and your beautiful wife.
Thank you.